Hi, I'm Randy Cantrell. Welcome to the Year of the Peer podcast with Leo Batari. This podcast is based on a simple truth. Who you surround yourself with matters. Author and keynote speaker Leo Batari will interview thought leaders from all walks of life who will share how they leverage peer advantage and show you how engaging your peers more purposefully can hold the key to greater success in business and in life. Today's guest is Sekou Andrews. Sekou is an elementary school teacher turned actor, musician, national poetry slam champion, entrepreneur, and now the world's leading poetic voice. On any given day, Sekou may deliver an original talk for international marketing executives, give a keynote speech at a leadership conference, or perform pieces for Barack Obama in Oprah's backyard. His work has been featured on such diverse national media outlets as ABC World News, MSNBC, HBO, Good Morning America, Showtime, MTV, and BET. Sekou does more than inspire us with his story. He inspires us with our story. We welcome Sekou to the show.
Sekou Andrews, welcome to Year of the Peer podcast. I can't tell you how excited I am to have you here on the show.
I'm excited to be on Year of the Peer.
You know, it was so great. Kathy Foreman actually introduced us when we were putting together a whole new event series called the Vistage Executive Summits. And we were really looking for some powerful keynotes to bring to those events. And of course, Kathy had you right at the top of the list. And I can't tell you how much I enjoyed, watching you, perform, if you will. And also, I just remember that very first table read when I was really getting a sense of your script and your work and how you delivered it. It was really, really phenomenal. So I just want to, thank you for that gift, because that was really terrific.
Absolutely. I remember that table read very well myself, and it was, definitely shout out to Kathy Foreman as well. Year of the Peer. It was a collective peer that brought us together, and I feel like at the end of the day, that's how some of the best business happens. It's just someone that is telling you there's someone that you need to know, and Kathy was that person for us. So I love it.
Well, in addition to what was described in the open, I would love for you to tell a little bit about your story, of course, and your transition, if you will, from elementary school teacher to world-renowned speaker. And so you can tell us a little bit of that backstory. I think that would really be helpful to give context for the readers, for the listeners also.
It all began in 1970. No. It's an interesting journey. This life takes you on plenty of those. And for me, it was pursuing the existing labels, as we all do initially. We pursue what exists because we don't know otherwise. And I do a lot of speaking on innovation and creative mindset and disruption and those types of things. And a big element to those speeches is learning how to see the world through the lens of a trailblazer, through the machete-shaped eyes of a trailblazer, as I say, that sees the path where there is none right now and stands in the middle of the woods and is the only person that sees the path, the imminent path. And so, that's sort of how it was. I was pursuing music. I was pursuing record deals. I was chasing Hollywood. I was, and then on the academic sort of business side, I was planning on being an entertainment lawyer. So, all existing labels. And the entertainment lawyer was sort of a backup to being an entertainer. You work in enough law firms after college, you realize law is not really a backup. Law is kind of a commitment, right? So I decided that I was going to try to pursue, to really make a shift into pursuing my entertainment and pursuing my passion. And, I was getting these, I decided, so I took on a job as a substitute teacher, which is kind of like my actor waiter job, you know what I mean? Like the waiter is the job that allows the actor to go on auditions, right? And the substitute teacher was what gave me flexibility to sort of do shows and travel if I needed to and so forth. You know, when I took the job, I expected there to be world tours that I was going to need to be available for, you know. So, so I decided to, become a substitute teacher, and vowed that I would not become a full-time teacher, because I knew I worked with kids before. I knew I would love it. I knew I'd be good at it, but I knew it wasn't ultimately what I was put here on the planet to do. And about 8 months later, I broke the vow. I became a full-time teacher. I tricked myself into believing I was going to have all this free time as a teacher. I don't know what madness that was, but teachers have no free time. Shout out to the real teachers out there who dedicate their lives to their students. And I, realized that I needed to make a choice. But during that 4 years of teaching elementary school, 5th grade in South Central LA, something unique happened. I started going to open mics to build a fan base for my music. And I started performing my hip hop lyrics, spoken word style, meaning I sort of broke free of the cadence and the rhythm and basically delivered them through another vehicle and created a different experience for the lyrics that made them more accessible. And it hit, and I hit, and I was a big hit on the scene, and I sort of had a rapid ascent on the spoken word scene. And then I kind of accidentally fell in love with spoken word poetry. Leo, that was not the plan. Not the plan, damn it. But from there, I was like, well, now what do I do with this? I always joke in my speeches about how I was leaving a multi-billion-dollar Hollywood and music industry for a multi-hundred-dollar poetry industry, right?
Yeah.
But I couldn't shake it. And I felt like I got more excited about the entrepreneur in me, the pioneer in me, got more excited about pioneering new trails in spoken word than being tossed into the sea of headshots and demos out there pursuing the same crumbs. So, after about 4 years of teaching and positioning myself and rising the ranks in the spoken word community, and really learning from my peers, learning from the folks, the handful of full-time poets that I knew out there, there was really nothing left to do but pinch my nose, close my eyes, hold my breath, and jump. And so I decided to do that and become a full-time poet. That was 15 years ago this year, and I haven't looked back since.
That's it's a great story. So it would be safe to say, though, that rather than chose what was expected or what was labeled, you kind of did march to a different drummer, and you saw something for yourself that you were fearless about exploring.
Mm-hmm.
Are there some people who you believe, some peers that you have who you believe influenced you and your ability to do that?
Absolutely. I mean, gosh, seriously, like how long of a list could I? This is going to be one of those kind of lists that I'm gonna wake up later tonight and be like, oh, right, and then I could have said John. Because I mean, there's just so many people along the path that shape you, that help forge you into who you are today. And and sometimes they're peers, and sometimes they're mentors, and sometimes they're teachers, and sometimes they're competitors and opponents and enemies. Like they're haters. They're all of them. That you are. In my early years, I think it was a lot of certainly the poets that I mentioned. A handful of poets that I saw making a living either full time or almost full time, sometimes full time as a poet. There's no model for this really out there, and so we're creating, poets that are out there are creating that model of what a full-time poetry career looks like. And it looked different for each of them. My folks like Shihan, who is one of the founders of the Poetry Lounge here in LA, one of the largest and longest running spoken word venues in the country. That was my home poetry venue. And, he was full-time, and Jaha Zainabu, another, and Talam AC, who was sort of like the godfather of the spoken word poetry scene. And I learned a lot from him, befriended him, and and really just started studying, studying the masters, studying my peers and my homies and my friends, and looking at who was doing what, but also looking at how I wanted to do it differently. I think that's a big part of it also is I built my whole life sort of cherry picking models, because there's never been a model that existed that was exactly what I wanted to do. And that's why I had to learn to sort of, be that blueprint, be that model. And it was the same thing moving from spoken word to poetic voice, because as I began to move from the traditional spoken word trajectory, which is for the most part, you got a book, you got a CD, you're selling your CD, you're traveling clubs and cafes locally or around the country. You're coming home with a wad full of cash from your sales, and that's how you're paying your rent, And then maybe you graduate to colleges, and the checks sometimes get bigger. Audiences can get bigger or even smaller sometimes, but you create a little bit more stability. And then that's kind of it. Like then, for the most part, it was you graduated to like a job, you left it. It was a phase, or you stayed on the college club circuit for a long time, and that was just what you loved, or you kind of moved to academia. You wrote a book, you taught, something like that. I felt like there's got to be something else that we can do with this industry. And as I began to move into the sort of, the world of industry and began to work with clients, I began to realize that this was sort of an untapped market for spoken word, but it also presented a lot of challenges. And I realized that I needed to shift my positioning away from the art of spoken word and to focus on the speaking world. So suddenly, at that point, my peers became more speakers. They were the Les Browns out there. They were the Keith Ferrazzi's and the Simon Mainarings and the Lisa Nichols and peers of mine that were in the speaking world, speakers themselves, trainers themselves, or were booking me. And I began to cherry pick from those models, Ken Cragans and so forth, and look at, okay, what is it that they're doing? And what is it that I want to do the same and do differently? So along each sort of step and milestone of my journey, there were a different set of peers, poets, entertainers, artists, singers, songwriters, speakers, entrepreneurs, business folks, sales folks that I began to study from, learn from. One of the most recent has been Lisa Nichols and the Motivating the Masses community down in Carlsbad, amazing community of leaders and entrepreneurs, and her and Susie Carter, who was my business coach. I've learned an incredible amount from them, and they've not only become folks that I've value exchanged with, and I've offered them value, and I've created marketing pieces for them, and they did business coaching with me, but they also became peers, they also became friends, and they also became family.
What's amazing too is that, just hearing you talk, it seems like all these influences from all of these other people really helped you kind of discover yourself and forge your own path, didn't it? I mean, as much as you're taking and cherry picking best practices, if you will, and all that, it only helped frame what was true to you.
That's
and
right.
Kind of discover that. That's fascinating.
That's right. Yeah, it's like like I said, you got to create a model out of thin air, and so it's a big challenge, but you use the other models as the basis for that. So I was creating the blueprint or the COO Print, as I call it. My nickname being COO. So I started creating the COO Print. You know what I mean? Like what is it going to look like? The mission for my company has been to create a commercially viable industry for spoken word in mainstream media, whereby poets can make a purposeful and profitable living. And so in order to do that, I had to start creating that model that other poets can follow, so that I can create something that other poets can say, I want to be that when I grow up. I want to be a poetic voice. And parents won't look at that and go, yeah, but what are you going to do for money? They won't think broke poet. I want to end the concept of the broke poet. And they can go, oh, my son, my daughter can buy a house off of poetry, can live a great life of poetry that's fulfilling and that's true to who they are.
Knowing that, of course, you created some really terrific, poetry for presentations that you did for keynotes of Vistage that not only I think is just amazing examples of your work, but also speak very directly to the power of peers and what they mean to us in our life. So actually, if you wouldn't mind, I think, I would love it if you, because I think the audience would love to have a feel for what Poetic Voice is about and what it really sounds like. And so if you could, maybe give us an example of what you did for Vistage, talking about the power of peers and the difference it can make in our lives. I'd love to, we'd love to hear some of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And just, so that everyone knows what I mean when I say poetic voice, the definition of poetic voice basically, in its simplest form, is the seamless integration of inspirational speaking and spoken word poetry. And so what happens is a lot of times you get an artist who is also a speaker, and when they deliver a speech or a talk, it becomes sort of a set. It's like I'm going to perform, I'm going to sing my song, do my dance, recite my poem, then you applaud, then I tell a story, and I talk about it, and I give some anecdotes, and I set up the next piece, and then I perform, you applaud, and I set up the next piece, and back and forth. And I found myself looking for the ability to create an experience that was seamless, where you couldn't get ahead of me, where you didn't know when the spoken word ended and the theater began and the business content ended and the comedy began and the poetry ended and the storytelling began. And it just becomes this one seamless experience of just constantly leaning in, going, I can't seem to get ahead of this. Like, wait a minute, that's our story. Oh, wait, that's great business insight. Is he rhyming? You know what I mean? And it's just this sort of roller coaster ride. And so that's what's made it so popular, is that it really does truly live in the hybrid world between a speaker and a performer, as opposed to you get a sense of now I'm performing and now I'm speaking. And so I'll give you a little taste of a piece called, it's a speech that's lived under a few different titles. It usually is under the title, The Audacity of What If. And it touches on, I've done it for several industries and several organizations and in several countries. The last time I did it, it was for a talk on humanizing business for Telstra in Australia, which is their leading mobile phone carrier. And so it really is a very universal piece, and it speaks a lot to the power of community and the power of peers and the power of being a part of something that's bigger than ourselves in order to become bigger ourselves. And so I've chopped up, I haven't read this because I've just chopped up a little the peer version. So if something all of a sudden feels disjointed, I'm just going to fake like it didn't happen and move on, because I just kind of chopped this up for you. It's normally a 25 to 45 minute keynote, so I'm not going to give you that.
Okay.
All right. So here we are. Me at my desk, you at yours. Surrounded by four walls. And all we want is a room with a view. And all we too often get is a view of a room, a boardroom that has seen too much of us. Right? A bedroom that has seen us too little, hotel rooms and airport terminals that we navigate by heart. We are adults now, adults and too busy and working and tired and can't talk to each other and doesn't stop for each other. And we walk congested city streets, colliding into each other without ever touching each other or ever crossing each other's borders or pulling back each other's curtains, for we are certain that we already know all there is to know about each other, and that is that we are each others. You and your business, me and mine, and these walls that confine, and this all-consuming grind, and this nameplate, this sign, this silo, this line, and this business card, trying to be all that defines me. And if I ever forget its purpose, the front side of it reminds me, you know the drill. Hey, let's shake hands. Let's get together. Let's do lunch. Let's do coffee. Here's my need. Here's your role. Here's my card. Call me. 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 Yes, go. So I know it might sound crazy, but what if we just decided to do it differently today? What if we all decided to acknowledge that the front of our cards merely talk to someone, while the back is a platform for dialogue with someone, right? For tapping into the collective intelligence that makes our whole greater than the sum of our smarts. There are communities with which we preemptively surround ourselves simply because they will be strong enough to give us the needed strength when we are too weak to do so alone. And they are our colleagues and peers, our friends and family, our spouses and lovers and life partners who give us a soft place to land, a place to hang our capes and break from being superwoman and man. We don't always need it, but when we do, on the days that we do, we so do. It is these exchanges found on the back of our cards that remind us the possibilities that we have in each other. And I know it sounds crazy, but what if taking your business to the next level is less about reaching new heights and more about reaching new depths, deepening your thinking and the ways that you connect. The executives and entrepreneurs who come to me for dynamic communication training, a lot of times they're often seeking the same thing. They want to be more authentic on stage. And so I remind them to learn who they are off stage, to create alignment with the masterful, infectious, charming person that they are off stage, the human being that they are off stage, and bring that in front of their clients, their prospective, their customers, their colleagues. That's what they want to see, right? When the entrepreneurs come to me and they want to be a more dynamic and inspiring leader, I remind them that you have to insist on inspiration over information. You have to insist on story over data. Because when you do, when you learn to embed data into your story, when you learn to embed the information into the inspiration, you create an experience where the data is unrecognizable and yet unmissable. When they come to me and they want to connect more deeply with their audiences, I remind them that the best way to connect with a human being is to be a human being. I get them to stop focusing on the front of their cards on stage and start sharing the backstory. I know, it sounds crazy, but what if this is the us that's embossed on the back of our business cards? And if we took a second to look closer, we'd find what's shared in who we are. I know it sounds crazy, but what if we didn't get so stuck on the front? So folks didn't get so stuck on our front and we handed out, here's what I care about instead of here's what I want. I know it's crazy, but what if we seize this chance to rediscover each other beyond the handshake and behind the card, right? To swap our visions and share our struggles and exchange our hearts. See, for true collaboration, you don't have to get all touchy-feely. You don't, relax. But you do have to touch and feel. We do have to process our issues and face what they reveal. We have to admit that this world is struggling beneath business as usual for us to commit to finally moving forward to business as mutual. Business as mutual through an ecosystem built on the backs of our cards, a community to better the truth of where we are and then tether it to the truth of where we can be by challenging like mentors and caring like family. And if you want to hear the rest of that, you got to book me, baby.
Exactly. Yeah, I think this whole idea, first of all, you immediately, brought me back to the other side of that table read that night for sure. I just think, among the many incredible nuggets that were in there, I think this idea that we have to go deeper if we're ever going to go higher,
Yeah.
I think is really profound and really, speaks to, the words and the depth of your words. Not just the poetic part of it is beautiful to listen to, and yet the meaning is always so profound, which I really enjoy. I know that you have a speaker program now, the Stage Might speaker training program. Now, you can't teach me to do that, though, can you? Exactly. I mean, how do you make me a better version of myself, or how does that? How does your training program? What's it all about?
I'm not trying to teach you to be Sekou, because I want to keep my job for a little bit longer, just a little bit longer. But yeah, I will absolutely teach you to become a more rock star version of you. It's funny because I didn't really want to be a speaker trainer, just like I really didn't want to be a motivational speaker. I felt like motivational speakers were cheesy, like it was always a guru. There was 3 steps to this, and I will make you better in this way. And I just felt like it was a lot of this kind of same cheesy stuff. But it was only when I was able to access it through my unique entry point, through Poetic Voice, that I found, okay, this is authentic to me. This reflects my story, reflects what I have to offer to the world that's unique. And the same thing with speaker training, really. I felt like there's a lot of speaker trainer programs out there, and many of them are great. So it wasn't an industry that I was necessarily trying to jump into, but it was a community that I wasn't serving. It was a way that I wasn't serving my community, I should say. I had a lot of executives and clients and attendees at events and so forth that were like, I need to know how to do that thing you did. How do you connect so powerfully? How do you create intimacy in a room of 5,000 people? How are you so authentically yourself on stage, even in a business, stodgy corporate environment, And I found myself I built this business off of helping organizations tell their stories more powerfully. But I haven't been serving the storytellers within the organizations, within the communities, that can learn to tell their stories more powerfully and have a far greater ripple effect and impact than I could alone. And I also realized that I had built a successful speaking career, and I had never been trained as a speaker. I had been trained as an actor. I'd been trained as a dancer and an improv artist, and in comedy and theater and poetry and songwriting and all of that. And so I realized that's really what makes my approach to speaking unique. And that's what I can teach. That's how I can help you, Leo, stand out when you're speaking on a stage with 10, 12 other speakers, to stand out as a rock star, to stand out as dynamic, because most likely the other speakers have learned speaking techniques. You have learned to use your body more gracefully by learning not just from speakers, but from dancers. You've learned to be more authentic in your skin by learning not just from speakers, but learning from actors who play roles with such authenticity that you can't tell the difference between Jamie Foxx and Ray Charles. But what if we couldn't, you studied Leo off stage so well that we couldn't tell the difference between Leo off stage and Leo on stage, because you're now giving an Oscar-winning performance of yourself because you trained like an actor, not like a speaker. You created a speech that had us singing in the hallways because you wrote it like a songwriter, not like a speechwriter. You can become distraction proof in any room that you're in and handle anything that's thrown at you. Phones ringing and babies crying and stages collapsing on one side, all because you trained like an improv artist. An improv artist learns to train to turn disaster into delight, right? And now that muscle is so incredibly trained that you're fearless. I just did a speech for a major healthcare insurance organization last week, and I was talking about, it's one of my most popular speeches called DIY Innovation, which you know well because I did that also for Vistage. Yep. And I was doing the full length, 45, 50-minute long version of it. And in minute 2, as I'm talking about disruptors and how disruptors are not distant storms on radar that you get to watch progress. They are termites that you ignore until your foundation gets wrecked. And I started talking about these termites, and as I did it, I stepped onto a part of the stage that was completely raggedy and shaking. and it felt like it was going to collapse. So I thought to myself, all right, well, this is minute 2 of an hour-long speech, right? What am I going to do? I can't disrupt my speech right now and stop. I'm just getting started. And I don't want to bring attention to that in a way that pulls away from the dynamic power. So I thought, okay, great. My brain is, my committee's meeting in my head, my training activates, and I'm thinking, improv artists would say, all right, well, great. I'm talking about termites, and the foundation is getting wrecked right now as I'm talking. And I also want to know, how bad is this section? Is it going to collapse or is it not? And it's just rickety. So I basically talked about the termites, stood on that section, and I started shaking it. And everyone in the audience was looking like, oh crap, like he's talking about termites and this whole section of the stage is shaking. But what they didn't realize was I was testing it out to be able to reassure myself for minute 15, 30, and 45 that it's okay if I walk on this section of the stage. It will not fall. I've already tested it out, which means now for the rest of the speech, I'm no longer going to be distracted by that.
Yeah.
But I did it in a way that was seamless with what I was talking about. That's not speaker training. That's performance training. And that's what I wanted to, that's the power that I've been excited about giving CEOs and VPs and executives and sales teams and entrepreneurs out there to make them more dynamic communicators.
Well, what makes you, a real leader, in my view, isn't that you forged a path as you have for speaking, so much as you are willing and generous enough to lead others to do the same, and to create more leaders, more great speakers, more people who can communicate with the kind of power that is so valuable and so necessary in our society, and just really love that. I will tell you, of course, that people who want to learn more about you can visit sekouandrews.com, SEKOU Andrews.com, and also rockstarspeakersecrets.com.
That's right.
And I guess if one more thing I want to add just at the end here, but I'd love to ask one more thing, Sekou. If you have one piece of advice for people in terms of how they may be able to do a better job of finding the people who can be a positive force in their lives, what would that be?
There is an incredible power that comes from surrounding yourself with communities in which they look at you in which you feel small among them, and they look at you like a giant. That has been one of the most powerful incubators for collaboration and for success in my experience. Communities like Vistage, where when I'm a part of those types of communities like my GLP program through Motivating the Masses, the Global Leadership Program, and lots of other, there's a group called Metal here in Los Angeles that I'm a part of. That's a group of business guys that meet each Saturday. All these different communities in which I find myself going, how did I make it into here? Like I hope nobody asks me any questions, and they discover that I'm an imposter and I don't belong in here with all these giants. I created this, I started this industry, I founded that, and I'm like, wow, I lucked out. I hit the lottery. I made it into here with these giants. How did that happen? And then in the meantime, they're looking at me like, how can I be like him? How can I get next to him? I want to come back and talk to you, but I want to go over and talk to Sekou. You know what I mean? And I have no idea that that's happening, but it creates an incredible juxtaposition that's both sort of humbling and empowering,
Yes.
And it allows you to both stay in a position of learning constantly and also stay in a position of contributing value constantly. So I would say, find those types of peer communities. Find those. You've all heard various versions of the phrase. Don't be this. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room, and all of that. The one I always say is, if you want to be the best, you surround yourself with the best. And to me, and I also say good people beget good people. So, surround yourself with people that you consider to be just really great people, because more than likely it will keep you on the path that you want to be on. But make sure that it's a community in which you can grow and in which you can contribute. And it's incredibly powerful.
So I knew there's a reason I asked you that question. And so look, thanks so much for your time today. It was awesome to have you on the show. And for most of all, thanks for making the whole greater than the sum of our smarts. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Definitely. Thank you, man. This is a pleasure. I'm proud of you to see this evolution with you and your business, and proud to, still be considered a peer to come on and add value. And I hope all of you guys will, if you found some value, please make sure you check out SekouAndrews.com. Spell it right. Sekou,
right.
Andrews.com. And make sure, if you want to learn about just being a more dynamic communicator, and you want to, it doesn't really matter whether it's, you're trying to speak to sell, or you're trying to speak as part of your job, or you just want to rock a PTA meeting. I don't really care. If you want to be more dynamic and confident and compelling, check out rockstarspeakersecrets.com. And I'll be doing a free training coming up soon. We'll make sure we get you mighty.
Awesome. And you invite me to that.
Absolutely.
All right. You have a great one. Thanks so much.
Thank you, man.
Thanks for joining us today. To learn more about Peer Advantage, to submit questions to Leo and our guest, and to subscribe to the Year of the Peer podcast, please visit us at leobottary.com. It's LeoBottary.com. This podcast is produced by me, Randy Cantrell, hosted, of course, by Leo Bottary. Music provided by Kevin MacLeod, Vibe Ace, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license.